Welcome to the Evans Legacy Financial Podcast, where real people have real conversations about money, mindset, and making moves. I'm your host, Jake Evans, and this show isn't about fluff or hype. It's about educating our community, sharing stories, and giving you the tools to make better decisions in business and in life. Let's dive in. Welcome, everyone. I'm bringing back Javier Veliz again. And Javier?
Hey, good morning, Jake. Thanks again.
You know, today's episode, we're about making sense about fixed indexed annuities. What are they? Why do they matter? And how they stack up against other retirement tools like 401ks and CDs. There's a lot of noise out there. Some say annuities are too complicated. Others swear by them. Today, we're cutting through the clutter. You know, this topic matters because I believe in helping people retire with peace of mind, not just a pile of paperwork. All right, so my first question for you today is, what is an annuity and what are the different types?
Okay. Well, that's an easy question with a complicated answer. But I'm going to make it really easy. So check this out. So there's many different types of annuities. We'll just start with the most basic one, which is a fixed annuity. A fixed annuity says that you're going to get X amount of interest over X amount of time. It's guaranteed. So, like for instance, I can think of a 5-year annuity that I used to sell, and this 5-year annuity gave a guaranteed interest rate of 5% for the first 5 years, and then after 5 years, it dropped down to 3%, and that 3% was guaranteed to stay that for the rest of the time that the person kept the annuity. So that's called a fixed annuity with a specified time frame with a specified interest rate. Fixed annuity. Now, some of the fixed annuities have lower rates. It's all cyclical. It really depends upon what the marketplaces are offering. So that's a fixed rate annuity. Then we have what are called fixed indexed annuities, and that is an indexed product that is tied to the marketplace, which catches all the gains, but you cannot lose any money. I'm going to go more into that one in a minute. And then we have variable annuities. Variable annuities were very, very prominent when I first started in the business. They are tied specifically to mutual funds, and what happens is that if the market goes up, then you participate in all the gains. But if the market goes down, you can possibly participate in the losses. So that's a very simple explanation for fixed indexed, and variable annuities. And then we also have something called FIAs, which basically when you retire and let's say you have $100,000 and you say, I want to turn this into immediate income. So a FIA is an immediate income where you transfer the money and they tell you, okay, you're going to get this amount of money per month for the next 10 years or whatever, however that is determined based upon what the client's needs are and the amount of money they can make from that transaction. Mm-hmm. So that's basically an immediate annuity. And then there's different variations from all of those, but those are the main focus of the insurance companies offering annuities.
Okay. So we talk a lot about indexing, and that's kind of the go-to today. So that's really where I want to go. And so let's start at the beginning. What exactly is a fixed indexed annuity, and how does it work?
Okay. So you're not, with the fixed indexed, you're indexing to whatever the indexes are, such as the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, PIMCO, Bloomberg. There's all these different companies that offer an index, and the index, basically, it matches what's going on in the marketplace. So when you get into, remember that an annuity is actually they're issued by life insurance companies, and what they do is they're built to give clients a sense of a guarantee. And so the idea with the fixed indexed annuity is that you end up having a product where your principal is guaranteed to never lose any money. So a lot of times I'll ask people, that are in the marketplace in their 401ks or in IRAs, any types of mutual funds, I ask them, when you lose money, can you sleep at night? Do you wake up in the middle of the night worrying about it? Does it somehow, drive you every day to be looking at your computer and watching it and seeing if you're going up and you're going down, and it affects your mood, it affects you, your sense of stability. There's a huge fear factor that's at play there. And some people, when they're working, they don't worry about that. But as you get closer to your retirement age, do you still have that same level of being able to ride things out? Mm-hmm. And so with the fixed index annuity, what happens is that we are indexing with those different, maybe you put 25% in the S&P 500, 25% in the Dow Jones, 25 in Barclays, and so you have a mix. But if the market makes money, you will make money. If the market loses money, you won't lose anything, and you capture all the high points. One of the drawbacks, or one of the criticisms that you'll hear, is that, oh, well, you don't make as much money as you do in the market, which is true. But see, when you're in the marketplace, you take all the risk. Mm-hmm. And so because this is an insurance product, we want to mitigate the risk. And so for instance, let's say that in the mutual fund marketplace, in your 401k, let's say that that you're able to make 40% this year. Okay, but in a fixed indexed annuity, maybe you only earn 16%. But now your 16% locks in, and you can never lose it. And so no matter what happens in the future, so like let's say the following year, that 40% gain becomes a 40% loss. Okay, so with a fixed indexed annuity, you will still remain at your high point, and you won't ever lose it. And so you will participate in all the high points throughout the years, and then all the valleys that where the market drops, you won't have any of that.
What you're basically saying here is you get all the gains and a zero loss, and if you looked at a graph, what that looks like, it's all uphill. It's all uphill and flatline. So if it loses for 5 years, that 5 years your money's secure. There's no as the market goes down, your money stays flat where it was at the high at its highest point up to that point.
Exactly.
Okay.
And actually, now that you mentioned graphs, we do have graphs, and that I show in presentations, and the graph will show that if you were in the marketplace and then there's a crash, how long it takes to recover that money. Because once you dropped all the way down and now you have the uphill battle again to get back to where you were, sometimes that might take 3, 4, 5 years to do that. Well, how does that correlate with your time horizon as to when you're ready to retire?
Well, and two, if you're looking at that, the time that it takes from that loss to get back to where you were.
Correct.
In an indexed situation, that time and that increase is increase on top of what you would have not lost at that point, and so now you're even a higher point.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And so these indexes catch all the high points, and one of the graphs shows that, let's just say that you had 100,000, and over 10 years, in order to overcome the loss, at some point maybe you're over at 200,000. And with the fixed index annuity, without those losses, just catching the high points, you're at like 350,000. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
It does make sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like when I first heard it about indexing, they talked about a zero loss floor. Mm-hmm. It's like, what does that mean? It means you don't lose any money.
That's right.
And I remember somebody asking me, how much money can you afford to lose this month?
Right.
None.
Yeah, and so really it comes back to the can you sleep at night? And then with the fixed index annuity, I also say, it is something that I would also give to my mother. Mm-hmm. It passes the mother test. So
there you go. That's a good one. Does it pass the mother test?
Yes. Now, one of the things that I have to caution you, there are annuity agents and that are unscrupulous. and I'm not one of them. One of the things I want to say is that if you are in the marketplace to buy an annuity, the first thing that you should do is the insurance agent who's talking to you about it, you should look up their insurance license number with the Department of Insurance in California and make sure that that person doesn't have any allegations against them or any suspensions or any type of disciplinary actions.
It's just like with any state licensed person, like my real estate license. You go and look up my real estate license. Now it's been short-lived, but there are no negative points. When I look for a broker, I look for the same thing. I look up their license to see how much have they had any negative points on them. Have they had any kind of complaints?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are agents that sell the wrong product to the wrong client. And so the insurance companies are really, really meticulous about the client profile and making sure that we are selling the right product to the right client. And there is different ways that they test that with the client profile. And so, but there are agents that sometimes will doctor things, and there's some agents that don't care, and they will sell people the wrong product. And a lot of times you will get in trouble if you're selling annuities to people that are 80 years and older. The insurance companies allow you to do that.
So there's the same kind of regulations that we talked about in your last episode about compliance and regulatory things and things like that. So
that's right. But personally, I tend, when I'm dealing with people that are over 70 years old, I ask them to get their children involved. I want to deal with their children. Also, I want their children to know what we're doing. And then in addition to that, people that are age 80 and above, I won't do annuities for them. I will let somebody else do them because there is too much history of lawsuits filed against insurance agents that where maybe somebody was already losing their memory or they were having a cognitive impairment and they don't remember, and maybe the insurance agent did everything correctly, but there's always that possibility. So I just made a decision a long time ago to make a hard line to not sell annuities to people 80 and above, even though insurance companies do offer annuities up to, I believe it's 85. So it just really depends upon the situation, but that's just what I do. And so going back to the compliance part, so the insurance company wants us to be compliant with what we're doing with anybody that we're doing business with. Check a life insurance agent's license. Make sure that they don't have any complaints against them, because a lot of times when I'm in competition, that's what I do, is I tell them to look at the other insurance license to make sure that they don't have any complaints either. Right.
So what I want to do is I want to talk about, I want to do a comparison to the fixed index annuity compared to a 401k rollover. So for someone retiring and rolling over a 401k, where does a fixed index annuity fit into the picture?
Okay. So I gave an example on the last episode of an agent that brought a client to me with $1,050,000. Came to me. The money was in a big, huge financial company that specializes in mutual funds. And this client had a big portfolio. And in that portfolio, he had lost $30,000 in a couple of days. He had over $30,000 in fees. And so we moved him into an annuity that paid a 19% bonus. Now, on an amount of $1,050,000, that 19% bonus was about $200,000. So what happened was that he was able to recoup the fees as well as his $30,000 loss, and still get another $130,000 on top of that.
We talked about that in your last episode. I remember that. Yeah.
Right, but the $1.1 million wasn't all of his money.
Got it.
So he still kept another $700,000 with that firm. And that's okay, because he realized that he didn't want to lose anymore. He made that gain, and now he's got a chunk of his money that is safe and will participate in the market when it goes up. He'll lock in his gains. It's projected that over 10 years that amount of $1,050,000 will be worth about $3.5 million in 10 years, based upon the history of the product and what it's done over the last 10 years. And so, but of course, we can't guarantee that, and just know that we just like everybody else says, the past performance is no guarantee of future performance. But we do know that the history of the market is every 10 years it pretty much repeats itself. We already have the statistics that show that.
So what I want to find out, I want to talk about taxes and fees. So how do taxes, fees, or long-term value compare between a 401k and a fixed index annuity?
Okay, so always remember that when you have advisors and you have money that's in the marketplace in mutual funds, you're going to have fees involved. Those fees differentiate depending upon what the product is, what type of product
what the vessel is.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, so as far as taxes go, when you're in qualified money, which is let's say a 401k or an IRA or a TSA, all the different retirement vehicles where you're deferring taxes, we can do a rollover where you roll it into an annuity. We establish an IRA, so that way the money can go. It can change hands from one company to the other, and with that changing of hands, there is no taxable consequence. The taxes start when you start to take the money out. So once you start to take the money out, that's when you start to pay the taxes on it. There's another product there's another vehicle called a non-qualified annuity. And what a non-qualified annuity is when somebody has already paid their taxes on their money and the money is sitting in a bank account. And so what ends up happening is the client has the money there and they want to put the money into an annuity. And so when they move the money into an annuity from their bank account, so your bank accounts where you're earning interest on, you're going to get a 1099 on those every year and pay taxes on it. When you move the money into an annuity, the taxes don't come out until after you start to take the income from it.
Are you taking my question is I'm kind of doing the math in my head. Are you paying taxes on that first, like let's say you start taking your income? Are they taxing everything that you're getting for income or just the portion of the original capital?
So they're doing it on both.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, they're taking the taxes on the money that when it starts to come out, you're paying full taxes on it.
Okay. And that's always been my question. Mm-hmm. Is it's like if I'm putting money, pre-taxed money into an account that now I'm still whatever money that gains, whatever gains I get on that money is still being taxed because it's taxable money
as it's coming out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Perfect. That's really okay. So, some folks are used to putting money into CDs. What makes the fixed index annuity more attractive or potentially more powerful?
Okay, so there have been, especially in the last few years, the banks were paying a little bit higher rates of return on CDs, especially if you locked them up, 4%, 4.5%, 5%. We used to call CDs certificates of depreciation because it used to be before we had the current interest rate system. It used to be that maybe you would get 1% on your savings account, maybe 1.5%, and then when you factor in inflation, and then when you factor in the taxes that you have to pay on that money when you get the 1099 at the end of the year, that's why we would call it a certificate of depreciation. Okay, versus if you put the money inside a fixed indexed annuity, maybe you don't get the 4% or 5% guaranteed, but maybe you might make 7, 8, 9, 10% in the market, and so there's opportunity to make more in it. But the key is that you don't have to pay. You don't get a 1099. You don't have to pay taxes on it until you're ready to start take the money out, which is different from the bank account.
Okay, so that was my next question. How does the growth potential in the fixed index annuity stack up against traditional bank products? Is it basically the same thing?
Exactly. So basically, as we explained, being in the sub accounts, you have the opportunity to hit the high points, and when there's the low points, just think about it. If you made, let's say, 2 years in a row, let's say you made a total of 30% 2 years in a row, at 4% guaranteed, how many years would it take you to get that?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's more opportunity with no possible loss. Let me go into a couple of products. I won't name names of the carriers, but I'll talk about the product that I offer. So one product that I offer pays right now currently a 45% bonus. So I just put this in with a client with a $500,000 deposit.
Mm-hmm.
So she earned $45,000 on every $100,000 on day one. So after the transaction occurred, I just delivered her annuity policy, and right there in the pages it shows on day one that her value is $725,000. So on top of her 500, she earned 225,000, and so that's on day one. Or 750. I don't know the math. I think maybe it's either 725 or 750. So now with this particular product, the client has to hold the money for 10 years. Okay, so they hold it for 10 years. She doesn't need the money for 10 years. Okay. And so historically, this same product over those 10 years would probably be worth somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.8 million. If historically it did what it did over the last 10 years from now, that's how it would look. Now, with this particular product, it's what we call a two-tier income annuity. She's got to hold it for the 10 years, but at the end of the 10 years, that lump sum of the 1.7, we then take that and turn that into an annual income that lasts forever.
Wow.
So this client is 66 years old. She has longevity in her life. Her family members have lived into their late 90s. And so if she starts taking the money at age 76, and let's say that her income from that, let's say that it was 1.7 million. Let's say her income is 150,000 a year. Well, that 150,000 a year will last for as long as she lives. And
that's huge.
It'll never go down. And in fact, if the market goes up and those index accounts go up, then she gets an annual pay raise. So if she starts at
huge.
A lifetime income with the possibility of annual pay raises.
Imagine her making 9%. Has anybody ever had a 9% pay raise in a year?
Oh, sure.
At an employer.
Oh, right.
We're lucky to get 2 or 3 these days.
Maybe. So let's just let me take you all the way through that. So let's say the 150,000 of income, annual income, 2 years from now increases to 165. So now she's at 165, and it stays at 165 for the rest of her life. And if there's a down play in the market, she's still at 165.
That's where that indexing comes in.
That's correct. And then let's say that 3 years from now, it goes up again, and now she's at 175 of income. Now it's 175 of income, and it never goes down for as long as she lives. So that is one vehicle that I use. But there's other vehicles. I mentioned earlier in the podcast where the guy got a 19% bonus. Well, with that particular product, the client has to stay in it for 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, if he decides that he wants to move it somewhere else, he can do that. At the end of the 10-year period, he can move it wherever he wants to move it, no problem. It can be moved. He can move it right back to the big financial institution that still has his other chunk of money.
All right. Man, that's all so powerful. So what I want to shift it a little bit, I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to talk about, the downsides, hidden fees or restrictions. So And that's the elephant in the room. What are some of the limitations or common criticisms and downsides of annuities?
Sure. In fact, class action lawsuits, unscrupulous agents, people get in trouble for selling the wrong product to the wrong person. So let's just take this 45% bonus. Let's say that I sold that to a person that was 79 years old. He's got to hold the money for 10 years. Can the 79-year-old hold the money for 10 years? Depends on his financial situation. So it comes back to financial situation. We can't put somebody into a product just to put them into the product. We have to understand financially how their whole portfolio looks, and maybe that product would work, but maybe it wouldn't work with all of their money. Maybe it would only work with a portion of their money. So it really depends on each situation. And so a downfall would be if you need to get to the money. What happens if you have an emergency and you need to get to that money? Well, when we're doing the financial analysis, what we're trying to do is determine how much money someone has already put away in savings, in the bank, other pools of money that they may have. So that way we can determine whether or not that it is fiscally responsible to be able to put them into this. And if it's not, then we have to deter them into a different way.
Okay.
And sometimes that means not doing any business at all.
And there it is about helping the client, putting their needs first and making sure the product is the right one for them. And the right product may be no product.
That's right.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. But all of the annuities, pretty much every single annuity company, gives the client the ability to pull out 10% of their principal every year without a penalty. So let's say that you gave me let's go back to the lady that gave me the $500,000. Let's say that after 1 year she comes back to me and says, "Hey, I need to get some money." Well, 10% of $500,000 is $50,000. So if she had an emergency that required $50,000, she could come to me. We could do that withdrawal, and she would not get penalized by the insurance company.
Okay.
10%. They call it 10% free look, a free amount.
I remember that. I remember that phrase. Yes. So I'm going to move forward a little bit.
But let me go back because I just said free look. There is something called the 30-day free look.
Right.
The 30-day free look would be if we did a transaction and then for some reason you came back to me and said, "Hey, I just want to go back to where I was at." The consumer has a 30-day free look to change the transaction and go back to where they want.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about, no product is a one-size-fits-all. Who would you not recommend for a fixed indexed annuity?
Young kids.
Okay.
25-year-olds. I'd say 30-year-olds might be okay. I tend to do a lot of my business with people that are probably like 35 to roughly about 70.
Okay. Why not so young? I probably know the answer. It's in my head, but I want to hear it from you.
Because when people are younger, now is the time to if they have 401ks, if they have other things where maybe they're getting a match from their company and they're putting money away systematically, automatically, they're able to start to grow money that way. And then eventually, when they have a career change or they move on from one company to another company, maybe I'm taking care of their life insurance and I know about these things. It's usually somewhere around 35 to 45 to 50 years old when they've had a change or maybe they've lost money or whatever the circumstances might be. Maybe now is the time for them to make that move where we do a rollover.
Okay, cool. That's great. Now, how do you assess suitability when working with a client? How do you assess their suitability for a fixed income annuity?
Mm-hmm. So the suitability is in the paperwork, and some companies are a little bit stronger than others, and that they make us dig into their financials. So a client has got to be, and I get that out of the way right up front. I do that as the first the first page of doing the application is I tell them this is the first thing. It's the most crucial thing. We need to get this out of the way first, and I need to know about all your finances. And so right then and there, I start gathering the information. And I've not ever had anybody say, whoa, stop, I don't want to go forward.
I was just going to say that. I have been dealing with this for a very short time, but everybody that I've talked to, when I start doing that application, when I start gathering that information, they're pulling out numbers, they're pulling out everything because this matters to them.
Right. And what's happened is that you did the correct job up front when you were explaining and talking to them and showing them. Then so when I'm explaining, talking, showing, and getting their trust and actually teaching them, when it comes time to actually get into the numbers, I've already preset that. I've already said, okay, so when we do the application, what's going to happen is I'm going to have to go into the nitty-gritty about the details of how much debt you have, how much assets you have, where they're at, how much is your income, where does it derive from, what kind of work do you do, what. All of that is taken into consideration, and the insurance company is looking over that when you submit the application to them.
So that kind of just rolls right into the next set of questions, and we kind of answered them. What should the presentation look like? Keeping it client focused. Making sure that we set it up right to say, here's what to expect. It's just like my first initial visit with a client is, sit with me. Let's go over a video for 10 or 15 minutes. Let's answer a few questions, and let's see if any of this is going to be a fit for you, or whatever piece or product it is we're trying to present or help them with.
Exactly.
And that's exactly right. So, this has been another really powerful episode. And I'll tell you what, folks, I'm learning just as much as you guys are about all this when I'm sitting with Javier here, because he's just a wealth of knowledge. And I really appreciate you coming in again. We've talked about fixed index annuities and how they offer market-linked growth with a zero loss. We talked about how they're not for everyone, and understanding the why behind the product is as important as the product itself.
That's right.
So if you're curious about whether a fixed income annuity could be a part of your retirement strategy, don't guess. Let's have a talk. Let's get in touch with Javier. The right education leads to the right decision. Javier, thank you again for coming in.
Okay.
Any last words?
No, I just really love what I do. And I've been doing it for a long time, and it doesn't even feel like work. And like I said on the last podcast, many of my clients become my really good friends.
Right.
And and so I want to help as many people as I can possibly help, and so I hope to hear from you.
Thank you again, Javier, and we'll put a little something on the bottom of the comments here for your website, $1,000,000shift.com. We'll get people in touch with you. Thank you again for coming. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks for tuning into the Evans Legacy Financial Podcast. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more real conversations that move the needle in life and business. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and never stop chasing what matters.